Have you noticed that this show doesn't have any commercials? I'm not selling you diapers or vitamins or smoothies or gasoline. That's because I don't want any corporate sponsors telling me what I can investigate or what I can say. Instead, you are our sponsors. This is a production by our nonprofit, the Informed Consent Action Network. So if you want more investigations, if you want landmark legal wins, if you want hard-hitting news, if you want the truth, go to ICANDecide.org and donate now. All right, everyone, we ready?
Yeah! Let's do this.
Action. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are out there in the world. And believe me, I've just seen the world. It's time to sit down and get on the high wire. And speaking of ways that you can support High Wire, it's going to be 112 degrees in Vegas when I'm there tomorrow for Freedom Fest. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but get yourself a towel. This summer's got plenty of months in it, and this is a great way to advertise and be a trendsetter, a conversation starter on a beach or a pool near you. So I hope you'll go out and get yourself some merch at highwire.shop. We got a really great show coming up here. I'm tan, rested, ready. I don't know if I'm rested. I think I've probably still got jet lag traveling all over the world. But my last stop before I came back here was Japan, and it looked a little bit like this. We're heading to Tokyo. None of us have been to the Far East.
Shoes off.
All right, so shoes off in the restaurant, little shoe lockers here. I wish I wore the same colored socks.
2 days, we get all power together.
Sounds good.
全部父なる力でこの地球をみんなの手で守っていきましょう。
We've been experiencing a lot of difficulties all over.
Do you understand?
Coming to you live from the Capybara Cafe here in Tokyo. I got some deep intel downloads from this capybara here. Come in. He's got more to tell me. All right. Oh, belly move.
Got a big day planned. The screening tonight, and where the event has been taking place, is a theater almost in the backyard of the government. Apparently there was some pushback. I'm going to go and interview some more scientists and doctors. Is the health ministry corrupt?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Their most famous comedian died. One guy died, and the government was able to spin that into terror and fear, and their culture is not really built on rebellion the way America is. In fact, they're the opposite. It's all the greater good of the whole is how they live. They're sweet people. They say that really started when they lost the war and America came and industrialized them and gave them advantage, but really said, you're never going to be able to beat us at anything. And that's sort of how they see America. It's sort of like an oppressor, life giver at the same time. When they're trying to get their population to rebel or stand up against vaccines, it's much more difficult. Also, I think the religious context. Jesus really is an activist. We have a religion that is all based on one person can make a difference. Theirs is Shinto, and then ultimately Buddhism, which is really more like the good of the all, Zen, and just rolling with it. We'll see how this goes today.
今日は永田町清涼会館にやってきました。
今日から2日間ゼロスパイク会議 in 東京が
Thank you. The movie I'm about to show you is the best way I can show the world the truth.
Publishing something like that, might as well retire. I'd be finished.
We would like some of the speakers to be with us. Dr. Roscoe, please.
Standing together,
一緒に立ち上がりましょう。
we can change this.
よろしくお願いします。日本の印象とかどう思いますか？
We're very much enjoying it here. The food is amazing.
I like sushi.
You like sushi?
Do you like sushi?
I do like sushi.
Oh.
Yes.
Good. 日本ではコロナの現状について正しく情報が発信されていないということがありますが、これを変えていくためには何が必要だと思いますか？
We need to start talking to each other. We need to share the truth so that there's more and more people know the truth. We've got to stop being afraid to talk about the things we care about.
Well, it's true. It was an amazing trip in Japan. I don't know if you've been or not. It's my first time, as I said in the video. And it's funny, we all realized as I was like recording that video and in an intersection, as an American, I was the only jaywalker in all of Tokyo, probably all of Japan. And that's really, you know, we're going to do a whole show on my experience, the interviews that we did in Japan, very enlightening in many ways. I think I keep saying it on my social media. And by the way, you can be following me in all these experiences if you're just watching my social media at Del Bigtree and at Highwire Talk is covering a lot of this too. But really, the experience is that the world is in different stages of what appears to me to be a real authoritarian globalist takeover. And Asia represents, I found myself, it's really beautiful. People are beautiful. But as I'm walking around with my teenage son, Ever, and my daughter, Thea, and of course my wife, Lee, was with us, I just thought this is the future that even politicians in America are dreaming for my children. This is their future, which is what's wrong with a completely compliant society that not only doesn't jaywalk, but they have a rule for like things we never talk about, right? We had a guide and I'm on the subway and they're like, oh, you have to put your hand down and let go of the handle when the door's open because no one wants to bump into an elbow, and the police will come up and talk to you about having your hand on a handle when we're stopped. You have a rule on that, and everyone adheres to it. And you can't be too wide when you're walking, like two people wide walking upstairs in the subway. It has to be single file. Like, you know, it's so great. They got a lot of rules. It's clean. You know, a 5-year-old can walk through Tokyo on the way to school and no one worries about them being abducted. But there is a video camera on every doorway, on every corner. Everywhere you go, they definitely do not celebrate their own individualism when you meet them. They speak very much as a nation, as a whole, the problems as a whole. It's a beehive. It's a hive mentality, if you will, which has really beautiful aspects. Maybe it's just my judgment as American, but there does seem to be something dead inside of that. There's something that makes you have to accept that world. Now, I was questioning, do we really need to be able to jaywalk? Do I need to be able to break rules? Is that what freedom is? These are all things I'm contemplating now, though, after traveling the world, and there's benefits and serious adverse effects from authoritarianism, and you know, I've seen it in different stages around the world. We're going to talk all about that in the days and weeks to come. I've got one of my favorite humans on the earth, the guy that probably puts me in many ways is more responsible for me being at this desk and the high wire. Dr. Andrew Wakefield's coming up later in the show to talk about his latest creative project, The Bequest, a book, a novel, fiction. I'm looking forward to talking about that. But first, you know, as I was in Japan, and, you know, it's the exact opposite. It's wild. You fly, we left, I think, at 5:45 p.m. and arrived in New York at 5:55 p.m. on the same day. The trip only took 10 minutes. But while I was so excited to get back to America, I mean, when you travel, I think, at least my experience, you really do get the sense of God bless America. But while I was over in Japan thinking, man, we got it great, some news broke that wasn't so great. This is what was happening while I was there.
The
The Make America Healthy Again movement is feeling a bit betrayed right now after the Supreme Court today sided with the maker of Roundup weed killer.
This is a long-running litigation all about Roundup weed killer, if you've ever had that in your garage, and specifically about the labels on that weed killer.
It's been the focus of hundreds of thousands of lawsuits across the country in recent years because of claims that an ingredient in Roundup can cause cancer.
The landmark 7-2 decision by the High Court struck down thousands of cases, asking for billions of dollars in damage by deciding in favor of herbicide maker Monsanto and its Roundup herbicide.
The pesticide issue has been severely disappointing. It's been a huge slap in the face. We're seeing a huge coordinated push at every level of government to shield pesticide companies from accountability.
This decision is a big win for agriculture corporations who continue to argue that the pesticide is essential to maintaining food security.
From a scientific and a medical perspective, if there is a possibility that a compound like this is causing cancer and is hurting people, it is our obligation to not have it available to the general public.
I actually got this breaking news via text somewhere around 2 or 3 in the morning because I'm in an opposite time zone. This is it. Supreme Court gives Monsanto a win in its fight against liability from weed killer. But I was being texted by Politico, by New York Times, Washington Post. Do you have a comment on the Monsanto decision? I mean, these are those moments where my life is surreal. It's like, I don't even know what they're talking about. I'm not watching. I got no American news. I'm not seeing it. It must have just been breaking news. And I went through a whole set of emotions, as I'm sure many in America have. And this is an issue I've been fighting before vaccines. I've been fighting before there was the high wire, before there was Vax. When I was working at CBS on the daytime talks for the doctors, I was fighting Monsanto and glyphosate and running stories on this issue. And of course, we were deeply involved with People versus Poison, a rally that was incredibly effective, that shifted the consciousness, I think, of this country. It was able to get the Luna Amendment passed, which then ultimately pulled this liability protection out of the government's hands and left it only. We had one last hurdle, the Supreme Court. And unfortunately, the Supreme Court has ruled in the favor of corporate interests once again. And, you know, I think that there's many ways to look at this. Personally, now that I'm traveling the world and I see that we are teetering on the edge of what I would say this dystopian future, that 1984, that Brave New World, you know, experience, part of me deep down thinks the water's not hot enough for people to respond. I guess we're going to need more pain, especially in France and Italy, where they still think this is all going to work itself out. In America, they're looking up to us. They know we're starting to challenge it. They know we're waking up. But frankly, this is a horrible moment in America. It's a horrible moment for this administration. But here's what it is telling us, I believe. It's what I've been saying. This is no longer a nation of, for, and by the people. This is a nation of, for, and by the corporations, which means, by definition, that we are turning towards fascism, a political system that is driven by corporate interests, not human interests. There's a lot to talk about. That's my opinion. So look, at least one thing I know is for sure. There were a lot of liberals, you know, and I used to be one of them, that really were like, what is the big deal with liability protection on vaccines? They're great. Well, guess what? Welcome to the pool. It's warm. Get in here. Now we're all screwed. Now something you cared about is going to have liability protection. Now your food is contaminated, and it's going to get harder and harder for you to do anything about it. So on the positive side, this is another wake-up call that maybe just might, I hope, I pray to God, brings us all together. Let's get rid of this idealism that is somehow held by our political parties and recognize we have a much bigger problem. No matter who's in charge, it seems like the corporations are having their day and we are not. So can we come together now? That's what I loved about the People versus Poison rally, was that it was Democrats and Republicans standing side by side. I hope this is a uniting moment for all of America against this corporate takeover of our country, and I'm telling you, it's further along around the world. But to get deeper into it, Aaron Siri actually had the opportunity to stand right in front of the Capitol down there in Washington, D.C. at the Great American State Fair. This was just a piece of that presentation that he gave on this topic.
The Supreme Court decision on Thursday basically made it so that the chemical industry can kill, maim, and injure you and your children with effectively impunity. Sounds crazy, right? Does that sound crazy? But let me tell you how they did it. Bayer, the maker of the pesticide glyphosate, anybody here know what glyphosate is? Okay, it's the most common pesticide on food in America. They sell about $10 billion worth of this pesticide a year. Here's the problem Bayer was having. They had paid out about $10 billion for just one type of injury from this product, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, from only one type of exposure on the skin, from only one class of individuals that used it, those who applied pesticides. With their billions of dollars, they're able to lobby the executive branch, influence elections, and even got the White House over there to issue an executive order not long ago to declare glyphosate a national security interest. And the EPA for decades has done nothing about it. They've got billions of dollars to influence members of Congress, right there. But you know what their money can't buy? Anybody got a guess? What do you get? Who? Their money can't buy juries. So they could get the executive branch to protect them. They could get maybe the legislature to protect them. But at the end of the day, we the people were able to hold them accountable for poisoning and causing cancer to the tune of $10 billion. They had a jury problem. A jury problem. They had a you problem. You. And you and you. We who actually care. They had a problem with us directly. And the Supreme Court on Thursday got rid of their jury problem.
They also have a bigger problem. Someone let Aaron Siri out of the courtrooms of America, and now he's speaking to the people and really starting to make a stir, and he joins me now. Aaron, incredible speech, incredible moment we find ourselves living in. I have to say, I'm actually surprised. I felt like, you know, you and I have talked many times that the Court of Public Opinion really does weigh in on Supreme Court decisions. It seemed to have I don't know anyone in America that wants to see liability protection on Monsanto and glyphosate. So am I wrong in calling this liability protection? Let's just start there.
No, you're not wrong in calling it that, because that's effectively exactly what it did. The primary way that you would bring a lawsuit to show that glyphosate caused the harm would be a failure to warn claim. You didn't warn me that glyphosate could cause cancer. Well, what the Supreme Court said on Thursday was, well, if it's not on the label, the EPA found that it doesn't cause that issue. So you can't bring a failure to warn claim if it's not on the label. And if it is on the label that the EPA approved, then you've been warned about it. So you can't bring a claim if it's off the label. You can't bring a claim if it's on the label, which means you can't bring a failure to warn claim in any state under any state law. That is basically effectively immunity granted by the members of the U.S. Supreme Court. It's extremely disturbing.
It's disturbing, too, because really it says to me, if you can infiltrate the government, if you can corrupt the EPA, which everybody with blood running through their veins knows we have a corporate captured government system. It seems to me the EPA, if the EPA was doing its own science like America and I thought it was doing before I got into this work, I thought the EPA does the safety studies. I thought the FDA does the safety studies. But when you find out the industry itself is doing their own studies and then presenting or not presenting what they found to the EPA, and then the EPA makes a decision on whatever they've been told by the company that's making the money off of it, if they get away with it, if they get away with the lie and the EPA believes them that there was no harm and they saw no harm, then it filters down to now we have no recourse because you got away with lying to our regulatory agency. I mean, am I seeing this the wrong way? I mean, it seems like what they're doing is saying, just go ahead. They're incentivizing the corruption of our government here and saying, as long as you can keep our government corrupt, we'll stand by you and let you poison America and the world.
If you think the government's coming to save you, it's here to protect you, Our military, yes, are the normal folks who basically have monopolized. We try to create a monopoly of violence. The police, the military, they're here to protect us. The EPA, if you think that they're really protecting us, you got nothing coming to you because number one, the EPA officials, where do they go to work afterwards? Where are they going to work? Where are they going to actually make real money? They're going to want to make money in industry. Number two, that assumes they do anything while they're in government. They don't do much. Do you think the EPA is really doing the work? We know this from the millions and millions of pages we've gotten from other agencies through the FOIA requests that ICAN supported. We see exactly what these agencies do behind the scenes, and often it's very little. When the CDC finally is going to do something, what they typically do is they contract it out. They don't even do it themselves.
Yeah.
If you're a government employee at the federal government, the safest thing for you to do is to do nothing. That's your safest spot to be in. So the fact that the EPA's, I don't even think you need corruption necessarily. They just sit in their hands and keep relicensing glyphosate without adding any warning labels to it. There's a reason that the industry wanted the EPA to be in charge of deciding what harms are caused and aren't caused, because they know that is an actor they can control, unlike juries.
Well, I think the news flash is this. Hello, America. This government is not here to save you. It is not working for you. If you want to do something about that, then get on board. That's what we're doing here at the High Wire. There's other great institutions that are working towards holding on to freedom. We are not going to have freedom. We are not going to have a right to choose if we keep letting corporations influence our government. You had a legal update that came out this week. I just want to touch on that really quick. Here's the headline. ICAN obtains records showing large numbers of pertussis and measles cases among the vaccinated. Of course, they blamed the unvaccinated, but what did you find and how did you find it?
Yeah, so in West Virginia, they were blaming, the unvaccinated for all the pertussis cases they were having. They were having a lot of pertussis cases. So we FOIA for, okay, what was the vaccine status? And we found is that over 70%, approximately 70%, for the last 5 years of those with pertussis were vaccinated. Well, that kind of undercuts their whole argument. And then separately, in New York, they were blaming, remember they blamed all the measles cases on the unvaccinated?
Yeah.
Well, guess what we found? It took us a long time to fight and get them. We got the records. Over 30% were vaccinated, and another 30%, they don't know the vaccination status. So over 60% of folks either were vaccinated or they don't know, which probably means they're vaccinated, I'm going to guess.
Yeah.
Because most people are vaccinated.
And what we're not seeing is how many of them are asymptomatic carriers that are spreading it but not showing symptoms, which is something you and I would love, Robert Kennedy Jr., to investigate. But this is just the type of things you're doing, the things that we were able to discover through FOIA requests. I think we focus a lot on the legal cases that you're bringing, but these discoveries, these FOIA requests, that's some really damning and very important information. And if you had a nation and a regulatory agency that actually cared, there is serious investigations that now need to happen on why are we mandating a vaccine, especially like pertussis, that fails at that level. This is not news to you or me. We've been reporting for years. You've won cases around the fact that it doesn't stop transmission. But, this should matter. We are going to make it matter. I want to thank you for doing that work just in the middle of this. You've been speaking out. We just had a great show last week showing you at the Kennedy Center. When you're doing this, I'm going to ask you the question everyone asks me. Why are you doing it? Why do it? What are you doing this for? Or do you have hope? Why are you putting all this effort into these things? Because you've gone beyond, Aaron, you've gone beyond where you're fighting in courtrooms for us. You are now speaking to the public a lot, which means it looks to me like you care. Why?
I do care about our basic civil and individual rights. It is what makes our country the incredible place it is. It makes what America is, and compared to every other nation that preceded it, and every other nation that many of them aspire to have our civil and individual rights. If we don't push back on the attempt to control what is injected, ingested, and put on our body in the name of corporate profits, we're going to be, going into bad place. But on a hopeful note, I think things are going relatively well, and I think eventually there will be a tipping point. Clearly, it's not with this administration right now. Look at glyphosate. Look at Monsanto. I think that you said, well, why would the Supreme Court do this? Why don't they listen to the people? Well, because right now, clearly the government's not listening to the people when it comes to pesticides. And when the Department of Justice, this Department of Justice, with Maha, supposed to be, seen as being part of this administration, goes into the U.S. Supreme Court and tells them, yes, give Monsanto this effective immunity, that's going to influence the Supreme Court's outcome. But that doesn't mean the next administration or the one after that. And I think that come midterms, they're going to pay the price for this in the midterms, in the polling, and in the outcomes. And so maybe this White House is not going to learn the lesson that you shouldn't do these types of things. But the next one will, maybe, and the next one after that. It's like every other civil rights movements of the past. It didn't always happen. It happened in increments, and the people are definitely waking up. And the more folks that wake up, there will be a tipping point. I think it'll happen. It'll happen in our lifetime.
Well, Aaron, I believe we are waking up. I do see the change in the future. I think obviously these are cosmic moments that are designed maybe to wake us up so that we stand up for what's right and we get out in the streets. We use our voices. We fight to hold on to our First Amendment rights, and no one is using the First Amendment better than you are. We're proud to work with you. I'm proud of all the work that we've done, and I just want to thank you. And for people that want to follow you on the work that you're doing, your social media, here it is, Aaron Siri SG, Aaron Siri SG. There you can follow him. He's also on Substack and has a great podcast going up there too. So, Aaron, keep up the good work. We look forward to many battles ahead. It's not over. If anyone thinks that we can go to sleep now, we just learned we've been asleep at the wheel. It's time to wake up. So thank you for all the work you're doing.
Thank you.
All right, take care. All right, well, look, if you want someone like Aaron Siri representing you in the Supreme Court on the issues of vaccines or maybe even glyphosate in the future, that's what the Highwire and ICAN is all about. So I hope if you are not a recurring donor, that you'll become one. This is the only news agency I know like this. It's super easy to become a recurring donor. Or if you have a large donation you want to make, maybe, an inheritance has come in. I don't think there's a better investment in the world. We have won back. We've done things no one has ever achieved before. Won back the religious exemption from vaccines in Mississippi. We've won in West Virginia, but of course that's been appealed. We're fighting that. This is ongoing. 90 different cases are going on right now that ICAN is supporting. That is only possible because of you. For everyone that supports the work that we do, I want to thank you. Look at that, 146 federal lawsuits, 516 document productions, over 8 million pages of information, including the Pfizer data that FDA tried to stop for 75 years, the Moderna data. And by the way, even in Japan, they heard about the FDA trying to hide that data for 75 years. You want to talk about making international news? So if you were funding us when we won the case against the FDA, you changed the world. So become a world changer, become a recurring donor, and help us with the work that we're doing. I can't wait to get to Dr. Andrew Wakefield coming up. But first, let's join in with the Jaxen Report. All right, Jeffrey, lots going on. What's at the top of the stack this week?
Well, I want to take a spot from Aaron here and just continue this through line right into the regulatory agencies, because we wouldn't be where we're at with Monsanto without the regulatory agencies and the conflicts of interest. And so in reporting on these regulatory agencies, it's kind of like schizophrenic, because some of them are doing good, some of them aren't doing so good. The Department of Agriculture has just done something that looks pretty good. USDA unveils $500 million SPUR program. It says the strengthening process for U.S. ranchers SPUR program will provide temporary financial assistance to small and regional American-owned slaughterhouses. Those are the processing plants. As the U.S. cattle herd hovers at 75-year low, triggering intense bidding wars for cattle that independent plants are struggling to afford. So this appears good. This is bringing it back from foreign processors, foreign buyers, because they're basically bidding out the small farmers. This brings back the processing at the local level, community level, true resilience there. And why is there such a problem? Well, of course, we have the screwworm coming up from the Darien Gap. We reported on that through Mexico. It's now in Texas. That's hurting the cattle herd. That's part of the reason. We have the COVID pandemic, still not recovered from that, 75-year low in cattle in the United States. But really, one of the biggest issues is this, told by this graphic. It's the consolidation of really the meat packing, the processing, and the meat industry. 4 large companies own over 85% of the entire industry. 2 of those, by the way, JBS and National Beef, are foreign owned, both majority controlled by Brazilian companies. So this is interesting too, because again, the schizophrenic conversation here, they want to bring that back to America and the meatpacking away from Brazil here and this overarching umbrella control. But the Supreme Court basically just handed Bayer and Syngenta, foreign chemical companies, a free rein in the United States. So it's, we're trying to make sense of this here, but sometimes it just doesn't. Well, one of the things the Trump administration did, President Trump particularly, was this executive order, regenerative agriculture. Anybody that knows anything about farming is pointing to regenerative agriculture as the way forward, away from this old technology crop chemicals like glyphosate. This is his executive order. We can go right to it. It says advancing regenerative agriculture and strengthening American farm resilience. And so why is this big deal? Well, this is the first time the administration, any presidential administration, really acknowledged this and said, hey, this is a good way to do this. And, we have people like Joe Salatin, Polyface Farms. That's like the modern day extension of really just indigenous wisdom here of how to work the land without chemicals. And let's go into this executive order here. It says this. These practices, regenerative agriculture, strengthen soil health, lower input costs, improve chemical efficiency to reduce overall use. Obviously, that's the whole goal here. Improve farm profitability. You can see it just goes on and on. This is a great thing.
Yeah,
My administration is committed to further actions that support farmers and ranchers as they seek to adopt these practices. But then it goes on to talk about how they're going to do this. Now, there's not a monetary amount that's being thrown at them. Previously, the administration put forward hundreds of millions of dollars for this regenerative agriculture, but this looks more to like the architecture of it and the science. So this executive order says HHS, it names a lot of agencies here, so you can see they're all being pulled into this. HHS, USDA, EPA shall issue a grant prize challenge from the National Institutes of Health for researchers to identify creative solutions for evaluating the exposure, diagnosis, and treatments of cumulative chemical exposures on individual health. So there it is. For the first time since the Maha report, the Trump administration is admitting cumulative exposure to crop chemicals is a problem. And they're saying we need some actual science. Well, they're not following the science because the science actually says that exposure to just some of these chemicals is wrong. Unless you're like the Toxic Avenger, cumulative chemical exposure is probably bad if you're a human being. Yeah. I don't know how much more science we need on that. But again, going back to this is a big deal. Regenerative agriculture is the way forward, and this administration and this president, hopefully whoever comes in next in 2028, will take this baton and run with it hard so we can get away from these crop chemicals. Until then, we have the EPA doing what the EPA has done. Despite Maha and despite the promises, this is the Environmental Working Group's press release. EPA quietly unleashes 3 toxic forever chemical pesticides on America's food supply.
Gee whiz.
Very disappointing to see this headline. It says there were no warnings to the farm workers who handle these chemicals or the families who will eat the food they're sprayed on. The EPA published the fast-tracked approvals in the Federal Register in recent days. I don't know who's reading that. The hazardous new herbicides, here we go, ready? Trifludamoxes. I'm not even going to go through all these. They're just chemical names. Notice they're going away from the names like Agent Orange or Gen X because those can be reported on. No one's reporting on these because they don't want to talk about them because they're stupid names. It says they can now be sprayed directly on major food crops, including wheat and citrus. It goes on to say, despite the EPA's internal data linking these chemicals to animal tumors and persistent water contamination, it quietly posted the approvals without informing the press or the public. Wow. And that's why we're here, because we're going to amplify this as loud as we can get it. And just a side note here, for people looking at this and going, well, maybe they're setting up to replace glyphosate with these new chemicals. They're already thinking 2 steps ahead. Nope. This is actually to be sprayed alongside glyphosate because these are to be sprayed on the leaves as an herbicide. All three of these are herbicides because there's now glyphosate-resistant leaves and crops that can't be killed with glyphosate. So just like antibiotic resistance and I don't know, the COVID shot, and now you need 10 boosters for it to work. Glyphosate's doing the same thing, and they have to keep on this chemical bandwagon.
Wow.
And that's the EPA for you.
Amazing. I mean, I feel like I'm just getting rope-a-dope. Like you have a good report, a bad report, and this is what this administration feels like. It's like you're jumping up and down with a pom-pom, and then right behind it, almost a lot of times on the same day, it feels like you get an equal and opposite Newtonian attack. Balancing out the good with the bad. It's a crazy administration. It's a crazy moment, and it's disappointing. Every time you feel like you get an advance, you're taking 2 steps back right after it.
Yeah, and now let's move on to a subject. It seems like much of the public is getting behind, or I should say, getting against, and that's data centers. These things are popping up everywhere. They're in so many states. Really, Virginia is the world leader. This is the headline here. If you're in Virginia, you're ground zero. You're the testing ground, and it's already escaped containment. They're everywhere there.
Wow.
And if you are unlucky enough to have one of these in your neighborhood, this is what it sounds like. Take a look.
Whether it's daytime or the dead of night, there is no such thing as peace and quiet.
Imagine having to hear this constant ringing.
Constant humming sound interferes with their sleep, their ability to enjoy their homes, and reduced property value.
Northern Virginia is known as the data center capital of the world, but people living near them say they are producing noise that's not only annoying but debilitating.
This data center complex is the first in the county to generate its own power, using 8 natural gas turbines 24/7 instead of connecting to the grid.
It's a disaster to have these power plants anywhere near residential areas.
We were told in the beginning that it's just they test the generators to make sure they're working in case of an emergency. And then as the year and the months have gone on,
they just never turned off?
They're just never turned off.
The massive data center was never hooked up to the power grid, so the generators are the only source of electricity.
You just hear this noise, it's just like, you just want to curse, it's that bad.
This is just not pleasant to listen to every day, all day.
You feel like you're cursed to have all this noise.
Just the image of that gigantic data center right in the middle of a neighborhood, and to think you've got these industrial turbines and things going all day, every day. I just can't even imagine. What does that do to your property values? You can't even move. Probably can't sell that house now. I mean, it's just.
No.
And what choice do people have when these things are happening? It's getting to be for you and I and our team really, I think, a focal point of something that I think we can stop. We must stop. This is going to lead to a whole other set of problems.
Yeah, and I don't think it's an exaggeration. If you were watching that media package right there and that media report, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that the data centers, according to the woman that was quoted in there, she said, they told us they were just turning it on to test it and they never turned it off. When I hear that, the data centers are using psychological operations on the people to get these things out. And they're plain just lying, according to this woman. And you see, they're starting to really show who they are, and the communities are really the victims here from these headlines. Look at this one here. This is out of Newsweek. Teachers are being asked to turn off their lights in county packed with data centers. That's in Virginia. It's a county in Virginia. So because the electricity costs are so high, they're going higher. So, I mean, I don't know, teachers probably aren't that important in society, so I guess we can have them turn off their lights. Maybe police, fire department can
So
shut down their
our
lights
kids
as
are going to
well.
be like reading by candlelight? We're going to go back to candlelight for our children's education because we got a data center up the street.
You're right, right. Who's voting on this? 1 or 2 county commissioners for the entire community? This isn't how this is going to work. This is going to be pushed back. So this is being pushed back. Here's one of them. This is in Virginia. The largest data center in the world proposed in Prince William Digital Gateway Data Center, that's what it's called, officially dies. It says in this article, after a legal battle that lasted more than 2 years, the controversial Prince William Data Gateway, a proposed 23 million square foot data center complex planned on 2,100 acres. You can see it here. It's near a national battlefield, so it's actually a historic monument. They're just going to kind of pave right over it. It's officially dead. So that's Blackstone. They pulled out of this. They dropped the lawsuit. Or not the lawsuit, but they dropped the legal fight to get this proposal to get to break ground. And so before this proposal, in China, there was basically about a 10 million square foot data center. That was the biggest in the world. This would have more than doubled that. Wow. Not going to happen. So they pulled out of that. The fight was brought to them, and they basically couldn't handle it in courts. But it's not just the legal fight; it's the political fight as well, and that's the one that's getting everyone's attention. Here's a headline. Remember, we reported just about a month ago in Utah there was a massive fight there. We had Mr. Wonderful. He was funding a data center there. Tucker Carlson did a big interview with him, basically, and asked him some really hard questions. Well, now the leadership in Utah is facing pushback. This is New York Times. Utah Senate President losing a Republican primary after data center backlash. Listen to this. The vote to oust the Senate President J. Stewart Adams was a stunner. Mr. Adams was one of the longest serving and most powerful politicians in Utah, a solidly Republican state, and had won earlier re-elections with little opposition. Not anymore. He's out. He's gone. He's done. And that's because he's been supporting the data centers. And that's not going to happen. So this thing is coming in hard and fast. And if you are a politician or you want to get into politics, sorry, you're going to have to pick a side here. And it's going to be pretty detrimental what side you pick, because it's going to affect your ability to stay in office or get elected to office. But let's finish with this. A story of hope, a good news story for humanity. Here's Ford Motor Company. This is out of the BBC. Remember, Ford Motor Company was putting data trackers in your car. It was running your name through police list to see if you're a felon. Here's Ford rehires human engineers after AI fails to match quality checks. Listen to this quote. It says, artificial intelligence is a fantastic tool, but it's only as good as the information you use to train it. Charles Poon, vice president of vehicle hardware engineering, told reports. Then he says this, over prior years, we didn't pay as much attention as we should have to the experience of our most knowledgeable engineers that have been with us through many product cycles, he said. So they had to bring them back. AI is not the promise that they thought it was. They literally fired people on that promise, and they had to bring them back. I hope they get paid well. I hope they get severance, just like the people that did not take the COVID jabs, because this is where this is going. This technology does not seem to be all it's cracked up to be at this point yet. But the data center conversation is not going away. We'll be reporting on it every week here that we can.
Power to the people is the story here. I love the fact that the politician in Utah lost his job over this, as he should. Decisions being made that are not in the public's best interest. Serious questions about water. I keep hearing from these data centers, oh, they're not going to use water, we're using nitrogen. Just like we're going to turn those generators off. Trust us. I don't think we should trust anything coming out of their mouths. Amazing reporting. Jeffrey, I've been traveling all over the world, and when I came back, I'm seeing people buzzing around. You're talking to producers. It looks like there's some production going on, which gives me the sense you're up to something. What are you up to, Jeffrey? What are you working on right now?
Well, Del, it's top secret, but I can say that we'll all know in about 2 weeks, and you'll probably continue to know every week after that for the time being. And if you want to figure out what I'm talking about, I'm sure we'll be announcing it somewhere on the next show, and definitely on socials coming up soon. But you're going to know in a couple of weeks, and I'm super excited. Lots of hard work going into this, and I think our audience and the greater public's going to really be excited about this. So stay tuned.
All right, you got me hanging on the edge. It's a cliffhanger. Jeffrey, great work. Thanks for holding down the fort as I was out running around the world. Really appreciate all the work you're doing in reporting. Keep it up.
All right, Del. Thank you.
All right, see you next week. All right, well, as I said at the top of the show, you know, life takes twists and turns. I actually had a funny experience. I started out in musical theater and acting and directing and all that, and I was watching, we came back through New York and Japan and watched a musical. It was a lot of fun. It was called N. Juliet on Broadway, and my daughter got all inspired to do more singing and dancing. And I got kind of emotional. It's a really poppy, you know, it's not Les Mis. And I was like, what am I getting emotional about it? Have you ever had those moments where I was like looking up and thinking, I remember when that was a dream of mine. I remember when that was supposed to be my life. So life is what happens
when you're making plans. Of course, I couldn't be happier. What an incredible life experience I'm having. And one of the big changes in my course of life happened when I met Dr. Andrew Wakefield, and we worked together to complete his film, Vaxxed, which he directed. And I really think that was a game-changing moment for the world around this conversation. If you don't know who Andrew Wakefield is, you would have had to been asleep at the wheel and sleeping under a rock and probably buried in lava. But here he is, just in case you missed it.
Dr. Andrew Wakefield. Dr. Andrew Wakefield.
Dr. Andrew Wakefield.
Andrew Wakefield.
The doctor who convinced thousands of parents to skip vital vaccinations for their children.
A 1998 study that linked the vaccine to autism and bowel disease gained enormous credibility from its publication in the British medical journal, The Lancet.
And our duty was not only to investigate those children to see if we could get to the root of their symptoms, but we have an obligation as doctors and scientists to faithfully report what the parent has told to us.
It's a film that is so controversial, it's getting booted from some film festivals, vaxxed from cover-up to catastrophe.
The MMR vaccine is causally associated with autism, and they have covered it up.
I, as a parent of a child who has autism, all I wanted was the movie to be seen. People can make their own judgment.
And I knew what I was getting into. I had a choice. I could have backed out of it. I could have continued. My medical training told me that I should invest my trust in the mother's story and pursue that to the expense of the experts. So I had a choice.
If you see something going on that is immoral, that is fake, that is fraudulent, then you've got to stand up and recant it. Putting all of this to one side, there is a much more important issue at stake, and that is the well-being of the children of this country and the world. And many of those have lost their voice or have no voice, and it's up to those of us who care about these issues to speak for them.
All right, well, it's my honor and pleasure to be joined by the man who really needs no introduction.
Great to see you, Dale.
It's really great to see you.
The traveler returns.
Indeed, indeed. Look what you got me into. I have you to blame.
I wish I could say I'm sorry, but I'm not. I'm glad you're here.
I think about you a lot, Andy, as I travel around, and I've thought a lot about really a moment when we were sitting in your basement working on Vax, and I said, are you worried that the truth will never get out, that we will just poison our children and it'll just continue on? And you said to me, no, eventually this will get so bad that people will have to wake up and the truth will be known. It's just how bad does it get before we realize what's been done and we can't ignore it. And I think about that because, I think about you, I think about Janie McCarthy, I think about some of these individuals that stood all by yourself when you made these discoveries, when you came out in the media. And I am touring the world. I'm probably doing 10, 20 interviews per country I go to, all the top scientists in the world. And they're saying what you started saying in the late 1990s. And I just thought, oh my God, Andy, you're not alone anymore. I mean, the cat is out of the bag. And we're talking the best scientists in the world. Are you getting a sense of this shift that's going on?
Yes, I am. Strangely, the other day, I was invited by Nick Hulscher and Peter McCullough to go on their paper. And their paper was an analysis, I'm sure you saw it, of all 136 studies that have purported to look at the relationship between vaccines and autism, including 12 or 13 vax versus unvax studies, the definitive safety study. And they came to the firm conclusion at the end of this analysis that vaccines, early childhood vaccines, multiple vaccines, were the greatest modifiable risk factor for autism spectrum disorder. So all I asked for all those years ago was more science to be done. The science has now been done, and the case is made. It'll take a while for it to sink in, but the fact is, you and I know that the public will be the final arbiter of whether vaccines are acceptable or not. Doesn't matter how much they spend on advertising, coercion, bullying, threatening people, taking away jobs. In the end, the consumer, the market always wins, and that's what's going to happen here.
I feel that. We're seeing polling now. I think in the last poll I saw 60% of pregnant families that are in a pregnancy right now are saying they are not going to adhere directly to the CDC schedule, either manipulating the timing, skipping some vaccines or all vaccines. I was just talking to Politico last week, and she was trying to make the argument that MAHA is very confused, that there's a lot of Democrats that consider they have MAHA values but won't put that name on themselves. And she said, you know, vaccines are not the strongest part of MAHA. It polls lower than all the food work. But she admitted to me, she says, you know, in our poll, though, I think it's now 40% of Americans believe there is a problem with the vaccine program. And she says, though it's not above the 50%, it's not around the 60 or 70% where food poisoning is at, she's like, I have to admit to you, that is a huge growth in the amount of people that are now looking at it. So we're 10% away from majority, really, a national majority seeing a problem with this program. I think that's moments away.
Yeah, no, when I first got involved all those years ago, there were perhaps 5 people, a handful of people around the world,
right,
who were even prepared to discuss the thorny issue of vaccine safety. Now, after Vaxxed and the work that you're doing and Aaron Siri is doing, and then COVID, in particular COVID had a dramatic effect, biggest mistake they ever made. Now it's more than half the adult population of the world are saying there's a problem, there's something going on. Whether they've decided to continue to adhere to the program or not, they're having that conversation around the table every night. What do we do? What do we do? Do we continue? And that's the trend. Look at the trend, and the trend will tell you exactly where this is going in the future.
I totally agree, Andy. I think you will. I've said it when I worked with you from the very beginning. You're going to go down in history as a man that was way ahead of his time. I think one of the greatest scientists of our time is you. You called it before anyone. And one day, as the Peter McCulloughs and the Pierre Corys and the Robert Malones are all coming on board and starting to recognize, sorry, Andy, for all the things I said or believed. Any scientist that actually looks at this is proving that you were right. I like to dream of a world. What would it have been had we listened to you from the beginning? But let's move on, because you're not buried in the past. You keep moving forward. You're incredibly creative. You'd made documentaries before we made Vax together. You've made several since, and you had a feature film in Protocol 7. But now we are going into the realm here. Let's go ahead and get a shot of your new book, The Bequest, a narrative. This is a piece of fiction that obviously ties in some things that you care about. But tell me, just what's the elevator pitch on The Bequest?
It's an interesting story, Del. Okay, so 2010, I went to a conference, gave a lecture in the US, and I was invited out to dinner by a mother afterwards, and she had a single child, a teenager, profoundly injured, nonverbal, and she was estranged from her husband, one child, no other children. And over dinner, she asked me if I would father a child for her. Now you may think, what a really
I have not had that happen yet.
That's the first time it's come up
Thank God.
on the show. But what she was asking was something that was symptomatic of a far greater problem. Okay, millions of parents in this country and around the world lie awake at night thinking, what happens to my child when I'm gone? When I become infirm or die, who is going to look after them? Because the world doesn't care, the world doesn't understand them, the world most certainly doesn't love them in the way that I do. They will die on the street.
Yeah.
And that's a pervasive concern of so many parents, of the people, the children, the individuals who have been injured on this battlefield that I believe and you believe is part of man's often futile quest against infectious disease. So what she was asking was a very, very sincere. She wasn't interested in a night of passion with Andy Wakefield. Forget that. That's what she wanted. It was to have a baby, to have a healthy baby
that could take care
would grow up,
his
to
brother,
look after
her
brother. Absolutely. And so I was so moved. I said at the time, I'm going to write a screenplay about this. Is absolutely fascinating. And to take it away from the issue of causation, to focus on that central issue of what happens when I'm no longer here. I put it on the Oregon Trail in the 1860s. And I did that, one, to get away from the issue of causation, to focus on that specific issue, and the other to put it in one of the most brutal environments imaginable. And so that's where it is. It's a Western. If anyone out there knows Taylor Sheridan, get him on the phone, tell him I want him to produce this film. And that's the basis of the Bequest. And it was going to be a movie, and as you know, the movie industry is in the doldrums at the moment. And my assistant, Emmy Robbins, said, you need to write this as a book. It's much cheaper to write a book and get it out there than make a movie. Someone will look at it and think, wow, that'll make a great movie, and off you go. So thanks, Emmy.
Yeah.
And I knew she was right. I thought, oh, damn, really, have I got it? And I did. I knew she was right, and I sat down and did it.
It was, in reading it, it reminded me, and sort of, I had an interesting thought about it. So you take, are they Norwegian, Scandinavian?
Norwegian.
Fishing family, rough life, come to America for a new vision, and then this woman, her husband, they're all together, and of course tragedy strikes as did in those times, and she's left with her autistic son trying to navigate this world. And it reminded me a little bit of one of my, favorite books by Cormac McCarthy, The Road. And I don't know if you've ever read it, but it's, an apocalyptic experience. But what it really is a story about fatherhood. It's a story about how do I make my son strong enough to survive in this very dark world, and I'm running out of time. And I got the same sense. It was almost, I felt like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it felt like a metaphor of what you and I have experienced in meeting all of these mothers going through this experience, which is, it is like the Wild West for them. They are suddenly isolated. No one helps. There's no doctor there that understands what's going on. No teacher believes them. Oftentimes, the husbands give up very early on, and they bail out because if we can't fix it right away. Of course, in this story, the father's lost to tragedy very early on, but I felt that mother in one of the most dangerous scenarios that you've put her in, trying to live in this world and find a way for her child to live into the future. So it reminded me of that. Let's take it out and put it into a different space. But really, when you talk to these mothers, they might as well be on the Oregon Trail. There's no doctors, there's no hospital. They're being gaslit. They're being accused of child abuse if they try to do anything. So it's really, in some ways, it was a really interesting way to help us experience what I think so many of these mothers and fathers too, but in your story, it's that mother's journey.
I think that analogy with McCarthy is a very good one. When I first got involved, I was presented with two competing sets of arguments. One from the experts, God save us from experts, COVID has taught us that, and the mothers. The experts saying, look, children don't regress, it starts in the womb, it's genetic. Parents just thought their children were speaking. They weren't really using complex words like helicopter. They were just making noises. There's no bowel disease. There's no getting better. Put them in a home and forget about it. That was the expert opinion. Yeah. Mothers said no, all of that is wrong, and the mothers have been right on absolutely every count. So the truth here and the substance of this is to trust the instinct of the mothers, and that will lead you in the right direction to a better understanding. And really, that's what it is. It's the road writ large.
Well, it's a great journey. Everybody, grab this book wherever books are sold. Is that where
it's on Amazon, or go to our website, which I'm sure you're posting. But
okay,
that is
there it is.
thebequest.co. Okay. Co, not .com.
Okay.
.co.
You'll love this read, especially if this sort of storyline is around you. It's a really beautiful journey. I found myself lost in your descriptions. You really are a great writer, a great human being. So, and by the way, I want you to stick around for Off the Record, because just about a year ago you were here, and we were talking like it might be your last time here. You're having serious heart problems, even discussions of transplant. I want to talk to you about that journey, but after the show. It's a totally different topic, so stick around. Check out The Bequest, but just the beauty of books now and AI is you can go and make a trailer. This is something I'm seeing a lot of people do, which is, a trailer of The Bequest, and it gives you a sense this could be a movie. Check this out.
Few men who survived will go back to the sea and sail for the New World. Here is only hardship and death. Oh, and salted herring. Protect him. He sees the world in ways that are lost to us in our daily struggles to survive.
All right, we'll definitely check out that book when you get a chance. I want to sort of close up this show on a theme, and I have to say, I'm still unpacking what my experience is around the world. For sure, I will tell you, we don't have time to sleep right now. I would say that these different nations are all in different stages of an authoritarian takeover. Japan probably the furthest along in many ways just by its design. But when we look here and I think about when we get complacent, we even think we have heroes, that there's heroes in government that will somehow make the difference, for us. And man, all you have to do is glance away for 1 second and one of these heroes falls apart. I have to say, one of the guys that I've thought has really been a hero all this time is Ron DeSantis. And in Florida, where they've really been ruling and staying ahead of the game on medical freedom and your right to choose, he just took away your right or stopped your right to choose naturopathy. This is breaking news. Governor DeSantis vetoes naturopathy legalization bill, keeps naturopathy a felony in Florida. SB 688 passed the Florida legislature march by a wide bipartisan margin, passing with a vote of 33-3 in the Senate and 85-22 in the House, which shows you most of your government in Florida knows what's going on. Legislative champions of this support it because it helps to address the growing physician shortage, has no state budgetary impact, gives Floridians more freedom, addresses a growing desire amongst Floridians for natural and alternative modalities, deregulates a field which has had a near total regulatory ban, allows naturopaths all kinds to describe their education, background, and services without fear from the state. Ron DeSantis, I think, put out a letter explaining himself. And in that, his letter states that he could create more regulation and bureaucratic hurdles, that this would create more bureaucratic hurdles than we already have, but that's impossible. Florida law since 1959 has been the ultimate regulatory hurdle as it completely bans naturopathy from existing in the state. So his veto letter went on to criticize, essentially criticize all of the people in government that push this forward. In his letter, he essentially tries to make, I think, what is a gaslighting argument that this is better for you. They don't want regulations, they're going to regulate them. No, they don't want it to be a felony, Ron. And he even said there's enough natural medicine in Florida. We don't need this too. And complains that there's not an accreditation university. Well, there's not one in Florida. You can't have, who's going to bring an accreditation university and teach naturopathy in a state where it's illegal? So seriously disappointing moment. So Ron DeSantis is apparently also suffering from some of this schizophrenia we are seeing up in Washington, D.C. Ultimately, look, I know we're not in those offices. I'm not in those rooms, and it's easy to sit here and judge. But what I think you can be clear about is there are powerful lobbyists that sit in those rooms. And even though he may stand up, and Joe Ladapo has done great work with vaccines, and he was, DeSantis has been really really great around that topic. There's still a weakness. There's still this thought around medicine and doctors. And I guess in politics, you can't just totally close out pharma because God knows what that means for your future. I suppose he's planning on running for president. And unfortunate for Ron, I think this is going to strike against him when it comes to the medical freedom movement. If you want to sort of track this story or anything that they try to do in the future, there's going to be another governor right around the corner. Stand for Health Freedom was a big part of this bill and getting it to where it was and all the people behind it. So if you're in the Florida area, definitely start tracking what standforhealthfreedom.com, what they're up to there. Look, the High Wire, and if you're one of those nonprofits out there, if you're doing work for like Stand for Health Freedom, that, you know, and the people in Florida that brought this to our attention, this is what the High Wire is here for. We are going to make sure that the work that you're doing is seen, that we know where we're being, led, where our nonprofits are putting together trips to capitals. I want, to celebrate that. So if you're out there and you have a breaking story, maybe you passed a bill or are working on it, please reach out to us at the High Wire. We like celebrating all that. Ron, shame on you. I hope you wake up. I hope somehow this gets turned around right away. This is really actually important to me. I almost primarily live with our family, the Big Trees, with holistic health. We don't go to doctors. We don't have a pediatrician. We go to chiropractors, naturopaths, homeopaths. I love Ayurveda. My wife's even studied some of that. So that's the route we're taking. And I'm actually working on a project I'll talk about in the future to promote more and more of that lifestyle, because I think we need other places to go. But look, here's the news flash. You can get depressed about these headlines. You can get upset that it's happening. But, maybe it's God's will. Maybe we need some more Democrats and liberals on board, and maybe some of these things affect them too. Maybe we have to start dropping our party lines and realize this is about humanity. This is about human beings. This is about our Constitution. Do we have freedom? Do we have rights endowed to us by God? Or is there no God and nobody cares? The Supreme Court thinks the corporations have more rights than I do, and that's who they work for. And that's who our regulatory agencies should work for. Look, all this is on the chopping block. We've made huge changes. As I travel the world, France, Italy, Japan are all waiting for Robert Kennedy Jr. to change the world for them too. They're looking at America, hoping that we win this, because if we don't, God help them. That's how they see it. And my message to them was, don't wait for us. You have your own battles, and frankly, we all need to stand up together. As you heard me in Japan, we need to be in this together. Our voices need to stand together. That's a message I'm also going to continue sharing. I'm at Freedom Fest. I'm leaving there tonight. We're going to be screening. We have a screening, Think Independence, the Freedom Fest, freedomfest.com. We are in the film festival there with An Inconvenient Study, so you can get tickets to watch. I think it's at 1 o'clock tomorrow. It's called the Anthem, the Libertarian Film Festival, anthemfilmfestival.com. Get tickets. Come out if you're anywhere in the Vegas area. If you haven't seen this film in a theater, it's a totally different experience. As I travel around the world, people say, man, I'd already seen it 3 times online, but sitting with an audience, it was really so much more impactful, really incredible. I'm glad I did it. You can check it out in Las Vegas tomorrow. Also, An Inconvenient Study. We've cleaned up the website. As I'm traveling around the world, we now have versions, because we're doing all these different languages, where you're going to be able to select whether you want subtitles or dubbed. Honestly, we are getting mixed opinions everywhere we go, so we're going to work on getting both versions eventually. But there is what is subtitled so far, so share it worldwide. As I keep saying, this is a tool we built. It is free to the world. Use it. It is so good. I wish you could see these audiences that are, mostly watching this with subtitles. I mean, it was wild to see all those Japanese characters along the bottom. I was like, how do they read that fast? But you can feel the emotion. You see the power this film is having in every single language. You can now share that. Go to the website. I'm sure you know people that are abroad. You have friends that we really want to sort of really invigorate this international movement, because it's the international experience that is under siege. We do not want one global governance. you know, I was thinking a lot about myself and my journey as I'm around the country. I started out with an investigation of vaccines and autism. And then that turned into vaccines and injury, vaccine injury in general. And I worked with Robert Kennedy Jr. and we got him up to HHS secretary. And then I was traveling the world and having these amazing speeches. And I just thought, you know, this has gone beyond just a vaccine issue. I'm not only, you know, anti-vaccine as far as the current vaccines that exist on this planet that have never been tested. I'm anti-globalist. I'm against some world global governance. I am maybe becoming a libertarian more and more in my heart because I want my government as close to me as possible. Not so big and so far away that its votes in other countries I've got to somehow affect to get the leader I want. We don't want that, folks. And it is right around the corner. And it's coming through data centers. It's coming through vaccine programs. It's coming through everything you're watching Jefferey Jaxen investigate and that we're reporting on here. So it's important. We love the work that we do here. I want to thank every sponsor that makes all this happen. For everyone at Freedom Fest, I'm on my way. I'll see you in Las Vegas. I'm also going to be the judge in the mock trial. It's a trial of ICE. I'm fascinated. I wonder what that's going to be like, given that my understanding is libertarians don't necessarily believe in border control. So I think that's a libertarian event, or at least it's part of the energy around Freedom Fest. So I'm curious how that goes, and I get to be the judge. That'll be super interesting. Looking for a lot of fun in Vegas. It's really great to be back. I want to thank everyone out there that is spreading the word, that is using your voice. You can't imagine how important freedom of speech is until you are in countries that don't think they have it. Use it. You are powerful. You are the ones that are going to change this world. Let's keep talking about that, and I'll see you next week on The High Wire.